Back to the Culture Call on Praise 93.3 with L. Spencer Smith. Our desire is to reach and empower the community by discussing a cross-section of relevant topics from various perspectives that are essential to its growth and interpersonal connections. Be sure to save our call-in number, 205-752-4800. Be sure to install the free Praise 93.3 app so you can send L. Spencer Smith a message or topic idea. Search for WTSK in your app store.
This is a world premiere.
Great morning, precious people. You know what time it is. That's right. It's time for the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith, right here on Praise 93.3, your inspiration station. And indeed, this is the place where Tuscaloosa meets the world. And for the next 2 hours, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., we're going to talk a little bit about everything, from society to sports, education to economics, and definitely from religion to relationship. And as always, we are here to create a safe space to have empowering, provocative, and yes, sometimes even controversial conversations. And guess what? You can stay right here, call in, chat it up, and as we learn together right here on the Culture Call. Listen, want to send a shout out? Let me do my shout outs in the morning. That's right. Number one, if this is your first time listening to the Culture Call, welcome to the CC family. We have been having a blast over the last year, and I'm telling you, you are in for a treat this morning. So I don't know what you're doing. You might be mowing your grass with your headphones in. You may be at your cubicle at work. You just simply may be driving downtown or driving wherever you're going on the interstate. Nonetheless, I am grateful to have you here to be a part of the number one talk show, The Culture Call. Absolutely, I'm grateful for that. Number two, shout out all of my consistent everyday listeners. That's right. You encourage me every day. And this show is exactly what it is because of you, because of your support, because of your comments, the way that you encourage me every time that you see me and tell me how important and valuable the work that we are doing every day impacts our community. I am so fortunate to have you in my life, Culture Call family. Tell a neighbor, tell a friend, tell them tune in to the Culture Call. And as always, number three, we've got to give a big shout out to the inimitable, the awesome Brother Jay, who leads us into this place every morning from 5 a.m. all the way up to the 10 o'clock hour. He is playing the best of great, amazing gospel music and giving us inspiration to boot. And I am grateful for him for allowing me to be right next to him. That's right. Mentoring me and coaching me and telling me, hey, boy, you can do this. And I love it. You need those kind of people in your life. So we want to definitely send a shout out to him. Absolutely. Listen, I want to encourage you, if you've not done so already, and I know that you probably have, but if you haven't, go ahead to your smart device, your iPhone or your Google phone, Android, whatever that might be, search to the App Store and search Praise 93.3 FM. And there you're going to find a free 99 app. It does not cost you a thing to download it on your phone or your device. Go ahead and do that. And that way you can hear all of the awesome and wonderful things that are going on at Praise 93.3 throughout the day. We send you notices about weather, the news, certain items that's going on and events that's going on in the Tuscaloosa and surrounding areas. And so definitely you don't want to miss that capability. You can hear what comes on before me, what comes on after me, and all throughout the day. So go ahead and download that. And it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in Detroit, Michigan, Chicago, Illinois, Richmond, Virginia, or right here in Tuscaloosa, Montgomery, Birmingham, Mobile, Huntsville, Aliceville, Gordo, Utah, Bowler G, wherever you might find yourself to be, you can hear what's happening, the Culture Call, and all of the wonderful things that's going on here on Praise 93.3 FM. We're so grateful for that. Listen, go ahead and send me your public service announcements and events to culturecall.praise@gmail.com, or you can go on social media and follow the Culture Call and press that like button, and you can send me a message there. Yeah, you can send me a DM or your flyer of that. We want to know and give people an opportunity to support what's happening in your church, your organization, your fraternity, your sorority, whether you're an artist getting ready to have a recording or have a concert, whether you're a pastor getting ready to start a new church or run a revival. revival. We want to let Lottie Dottie and everybody know what is happening in your neck of the woods so that we can put some faces in the place to let you know how important you are and what you do really matters in our community. You know why? Because we do it better when we do it together. And as always, you can go ahead and save this number, 205-750-24800. That's 205-752. Let me get that right. 752-4800. 205-752-4800. You can give me a call or you can chat it up on the app. That's right. Just send me your messages and we will talk about them on the air, especially this month. I think it's so very important. In terms of the subject matter that we've been talking about this month. And as always, if you missed any of the broadcasts, you missed any of the shows previously, let me tell you right now, you have an opportunity to listen to me every day. If you miss it, right, you can go to Apple Podcasts and follow Culture Call. Leave the article, The Output Culture Call. You'll see my face in all of the previous episodes that we've done. Yeah, so that it can be a blessing to your day. You won't be late, last, and or lost. You can play those and listen to them because we always have something great to say and talk about. All right, good deal. Listen, do me a favor, sit back and relax. Grab you some coffee. You know how we do it, Maxwell House to Starbucks. That's right. Maybe coffee is not your thing. So get you some herbal tea, chamomile if you're trying to calm down, and green tea if you want that little caffeine kick to kind of spur you over into the lunch hour. And definitely, you can get some alkaline water. That's the water in the red and black label. My favorite is Essentia. Go ahead and get hydrated, detox that body, flush out those systems, those kidneys, all those things. And let's get into the culture. Listen, beloved, there is so much going on that I don't want you to miss. And it will take me all morning long just to tell you what's happening in our world in terms of news, in terms of court cases, in terms of, the encampments for the Palestinian encampments, the anti-Zionist movement that's happening on sweeping college campuses all around the country. Just so much going on, even right here locally. Just businessmen and city councilmen just making big moves, getting ready to do major things at the former McFarland Mall. Just so much going on. And so that's why you need that app so you can pay attention to what's happening, not just only in Tuscaloosa, but all around the world. But I want to bring attention to all month long, as best we can, to Mental Health Awareness Month. That's it. Mental Health Awareness Month. I hope that you are really or have been really paying attention to what's happening in the areas of mental health, right? That we have a tremendous uptick of mental health and stress issues. Of course, last month was stress awareness. This month is mental health awareness, and they kind of go together. April showers bring May flowers, right? And so, Culture Call, I hope that you have been paying attention to all of the studies on the news that because of the times, I know the times are much better than they were when we were going through the global pandemic, but there are still people that are suffering as a result of those tremendous, unprecedented times, and it has affected their minds. It has affected them on a psychological level, and people were suffering even before that. But we are shining a light on it this month because I believe that as a community, we, number one, need to really pay attention to it, especially those who are around us who may be suffering from different kinds of mental health challenges and maybe disease or whatever have you. Yeah, we need to pay attention so that we can be of aid to them, right? And so that we won't create, in our community, we know how to do humor, and we have a lot of levity and being able to, deal with life and go through life. But the reality is that mental health challenges are not a laughing matter. They are not. And you wouldn't know that if you've never really been around anyone that has a mental health challenge, or a family member, or even you, right? That you would know that is not a thing that, creates humor and all those things. Those are things that we should take seriously. And this morning, we're going to talk about Mania, Mania. That's right, Mania management. That's what we're going to talk about, taking our minds seriously and really beginning to understand those things that affect our community, right? The other day, we talked about anxiety and how that begins to really deal with with this heightened state of always worrying and always being on this place of distrustfulness and always being sporadic and never being able to focus. You're always distracted, and not even sometimes distracted, but also deterred and, or better yet, detoured by certain issues that go on in your life, and you're anxious. And of course, the text talks about, the Bible says that we ought to be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving let our requests be made known unto God. And I think that's very important, that when Jesus begins to deal with this whole mental issue in Matthew chapter number 6, he tells us, take no thought. And I think we need to pay attention to that, because a lot of times we cause ourselves to think into panic and think into anxiety and think into worry and think into discouragement and think into depression. And Jesus tells us, don't take that thought. What does that really mean when we look at it as it relates to mania? And really, mania is this whole idea of a heightened place of excitement, a heightened place of things that will cause us to be off-ended in our psychological world. We need to make sure that as we approach these topics in this situation, that we understand exactly what it means, right? It's characterized by elevated mood, energy, and excessive excitement, right? It's typically associated with bipolar disorder, although it can be a symptom of other mental health conditions. Mania can manifest itself in different levels of severity, yes, that ranging from mild to severe. And so we really need to make sure that we are paying attention to our minds and really pay attention to the words of Christ, right? Pay attention to the words of Jesus. Take no thought, because it all begins in the thought realm. It all begins in our thought life. And I think that's very important. And I don't know how many times that we pay attention, or how intentional and diligent we are paying attention to the thoughts that come out into our mind, right? That we, looking at television, looking at the news, experiencing certain traumas and experience certain situations in life, because, sometimes life's, right? Life, how the kids say, life be lifing, right? And you got to be careful how in those times that you guard your gates, right? Because out of them flow the issues of life, right? Guard your heart or your mind with all diligence, right? We've got to be diligent, because every second, every moment of the day, there is a thought that is trying to enter into the gates of your mind. And if you're not careful, that is one way that mania can begin, right? That's one way where this whole idea of inflated and elevated thinking can begin, that causes you to disassociate with reality, or disassociate with those things that are needful for you to have a peaceful life, to be able to navigate with wisdom and understanding and knowledge certain aspects of life, right? It causes you to be a hyperly reactionary. And when we don't understand that, and we expose ourselves to all kinds of things, right? All kinds of conversations, all kinds of television shows, all kinds of music, right? We've got to be very careful what we allow into our minds and take that thought, because I said on the other day, and I want to say it again, that those thoughts can quickly become, as Paul speaks about them in 2 Corinthians chapter number 10, they can quickly become strongholds. They can become strongholds or fortified places in our minds. And the text continues there. He says, and it can create also imaginations. And when you break that word imaginations down in the Greek, it means arguments, right? It starts arguing with your sanity, right? Those thoughts start arguing with your peace. It starts arguing with the things that that create your sanity. It starts arguing with your reality, and then you start seeing things, right? In terms of schizophrenia and all of those kinds of things of that nature. When you don't understand exactly the things that come in and out of your mind, your mind could be a fertile seed bed of allowing certain things to generate. And then one day you'll go and you'll start. You start seeing the world and you start responding and, or better yet, reacting to certain things that you used to have a grip on, right? And that's very, very important. And so one of the things that we've got to do, and I want to begin this conversation this morning with really telling you and giving you the urgency of protecting your thought world. You have to protect your thought world. You got to protect your mind. Right? Do not take it for granted that there is, that you're always, that things, everything around you agrees with your existence. Everything around you agrees with your sanity and you being in your right mind. Because I want to be the first to tell you, Culture Call, it is not. Right. And a lot of times, when we really do a deep dive study, those things are not necessarily demonic and or evil. Those things are not satanic. It can be. So I don't want to preclude that, but most of the times it is because we are unaware. And not only are we unaware, but we're also not cultivating a vigilance around our mental health. We're not doing the things that we need to do as individuals to protect our thought life. We are not to protect the way that we begin to process and to proceed, right? Because as you process, you proceed. In other words, you go into the direction of how you process a thought. And most people never really think about it to that degree. And that's why we're having this conversation and being able to manage your mania, right? And manage mania, because if you're not being careful to your mind, anything can come in. Any trauma can come in. See, you need to have a sound mind before you go through trauma. And I know that's easier said than done because we live life in real time, especially when we were children and when we were in stages where other people were responsible for protecting us, protecting our thought world, protecting the world around us. And they did not do that, right? Either by absence, by abuse, or by any other thing or any other condition, right? They did not, protect us. And so there are certain things that happen to us that are extreme triggers, right? That created certain things inside of us, or better yet, that our parents could have had biological genetic issues that stem from their families, and two people got together and created a child that now suffers from certain mental challenges and diseases or diseases, and they grow up to be adults. You see those things when they are children, but they have grown up to be adults now, and now they're suffering gravely under this level of mania. And if we are not careful, we'll create a generation because of all of the exposure to things, right? We are allowing social media or television or video games and to raise them. We're allowing their friends to have so much participation and counsel into their world, and they're opening up. They're experimenting with drugs and spirituality. And we're trying to figure out what's going on with our child, what's going on with this one, what's happening. And what it is that we've created and cultivated an environment that does not protect their mind, that does not protect their thought world, right? And so this is important, right? And so when Jesus begins to talk about it in Matthew chapter number 6, what he really does is telling us, hey, take no thought. Don't take thought, because those thoughts are trying to make you distrust that you have support, you have help, that you have divine origination in the earth, that you didn't just get here. You ain't some blob that just walked out of the water, right? It's the same, it's the same scheme and trick from the beginning, right? That I want to make sure that you don't trust anything around you, and that you create this world of distrust where you worry about everything and where you allow any and everything to to come into your mind and into your world. That's important. You need to learn how to put up proper guards to guard against mania, to guard against anxiety, to guard against anything that would have a destructive and a delaying effect on the health of your mental status, right? A sound mind should be and is your portion. Let me say it again. A sound mind is and should be your portion. You got me? It's important for us to do that, right? If we don't do that, we'll walk around in the world and anybody can say anything, and our mind will take that as if. Let me say it again. As if it is reality to us, right? Because there is always something that is trying to fight us for the determining factor of our reality. Always trying to stop us and get us to the place of not agreeing with making wise choices and decisions. And so it's important, right? And when we talk about mania is a serious condition that can have significant consequences on someone's life. We've got to know that. We've got to take it serious, right? And so if you are someone that you know is experiencing symptoms of mania, you've got to know that they've got to get some help, right? There are levels to mania, right? And the levels to mania is what they call hypomania, HYPO mania. This is the mildest form of mania and is often associated with bipolar 2 disorder. And some of those symptoms include increased energy, heightened mood, racing thoughts, increased creativity, decreased need for sleep, and generally euphoric state. And hypomania does not usually cause significant impairment in the daily life. That's what the studies say. And it may even be experienced as a positive and a productive phase, right? That when you've got something you got to do and you've got a deadline and you got all this positive creative energy, that hypomania will push you, right? It will say, hey, I'll put sleep off because I got to get this done. And that's not necessarily a negative thing, but that thing can increase a euphoric state or increase creativity. You know, you get that last kick, that last push. Have you ever been there? I know I have, Culture Call, that I'm trying to finish a chapter to a book. I'm trying to finish this final thought to a sermon I'm going to preach, or I'm finally trying to write this hook or this last lyric to a song. And, you know, and so you can feel that kind of energy. Your body just kind of creates and your mind says, hey, let's go. And things start clicking, right? And so hypomania is not a bad thing. It's not. But that's still a level of mania that we need to pay attention to. And then the second one is mania proper. That means it's the hallmark symptom of bipolar 1 disorder. And what it means is it involves more severe symptoms and characterized by a distinct and noticeable change in behavior and mood, right? And so during just mania proper episode, individuals may exhibit extreme euphoria, grandiosity, decreased need for sleep, rapid speech, racing thoughts, impulsive behavior, increased risk taking, irritability, and difficulty concentrating. So you see the difference between, number one, that when you have just hypomania, you'll have an increased ability to concentrate. It'll awaken your creative state and helps you to push on through to finish and be very productive. But mania proper is kind of conversely that, or works in an adverse thing, because it increased risk-taking, racist, rapid speech and racing thoughts, decreased need for sleep. And then it also takes this irritability and difficulty concentrating, right? And those episodes significantly disrupt daily functioning and may require medical intervention, right? If you are someone you know is experiencing that, don't joke about it, right? you need to pay attention and seek to connect that individual with the help that they need, right? And so you've got to begin to do that. And then there is mixed mania, which causes, depression and episodes, right, with mood swings and extreme irritability. You can have that going on there. And then finally, the big one is psychotic mania, and where it leads to psychosis and a break from reality. So you have 4 levels of mania that we must need pay attention to, and we're going to discuss a little bit about each of them this morning, because I believe that what we don't pay attention to in our community, in our own personal lives, those things have a way to come back to ensnare us. They have a way to come back and say, oh, I got you now, right? And we've got to make sure of that, that we pay attention to that and don't give our thoughts over, and make sure that we don't enter into a level of mild psychosis, because one of the things that my grandmother told me a long time ago, that you can't tell your mind to come back sometimes. Sometimes you'll let it go too far. Some people let it go too far, and then they get stuck in a reality that's really not real. They get stuck in a state where they're no longer productive. And so we've got to make sure that we manage that. So Culture Call, that's what we're going to be talking about this morning, managing your mania and taking our minds seriously. Right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith, Praise 93.3, your inspiration station. It's going to be a great day, informative. I need you to keep it right here. Don't miss it.
This is a world premiere.
And we are back right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith, Praise 93.3 FM, your inspiration station. And we are having an amazing conversation, amazing talk about mania management. That's right, taking our minds seriously in this Mental Health Awareness Month. And I really am very serious and very concerned about this, because there's so many elements in this world that's trying to break us, that's trying to break you and I. And if we are not careful, if we are not really doing due diligence and all that we need to be doing to take care of our mental health, then we're going to begin to allow ourselves to be exposed to certain thoughts and certain kind of impulses that will cause us to have these psychotic and or mania effects. And I think that's important, right? Back when I was growing up, people would call each other maniacs. You're such a maniac and all these different, but they didn't have an understanding of really what it really meant, right? And so when someone was doing something a little bit, what we thought was a little bit off and crazy, we're just, he just acting like a maniac, blah, blah, blah. And I get it because, again, we have this tendency to try to define, if I can say that for the lack of a better term, to define certain things in an element whereby we can understand it, and not just understand it, but push it off and say, hey, that's nothing about that. But the reality is that we've got to begin to pay attention. And it doesn't matter if you're spiritual. It doesn't matter if you go to church every Sunday. It doesn't matter. No, you have to always guard your heart with all diligence, because out of it flows the issues of life, right? And a lot of people, what I'm discovering, even in my day-to-day work, they suffer from, a lot of people suffer from mixed mania. And of course, mixed mania, M-I-X-E-D, mania, is the symptoms of depression leading to a mixed manic episode, which causes intense mood swings, extremely irritable, restless agitation, and feeling hopelessness or despair. That's kind of where a lot of people are falling into in this hour, in this moment that we live, that they're in mixed mania, and they just think that they're irritable. They just think that, it's all hope is lost, and et cetera. All those things. They're feeling restless, agitation, not being able to sleep, not being able to project, not being able to focus, having mood swings. And, we just trying to kind of put it off, and we tell people, pray about it. But no, you need to label it. You need to figure out what's really going on. And a lot of people, because of the conditions of our country, especially in our community, in the whole white supremacy, racist kind of situation, institutionalized things that's going on, economic despair. Even though black unemployment is at its lowest that it's been in a generation under this presidential administration, there are still people that are going through. There are still people that are suffering, right? That their divorces are on the rise and relationships don't work out. And, people over the last, again, since 2000, since the global pandemic, the rise of deaths and the loss of life has increased significantly. And, there's still people that are mourning folks that they lost during that period because they weren't able to mourn or fulfill that process properly. And they never got a chance to actually, say goodbye. It was just a ravaging. And I don't want us to ever discount the people in terms of how these things affect them, because that's their reality. And what we cannot do is belittle their reality. I don't want to get into that space to where we attempt to do that, because that's a problem. We don't need to do that to people, because they really are feeling it. They are really feeling that pressure and that oppression with regards to, this idea of loss and this idea of tremendous pressure, trying to make sense of their everyday life. And they have a very dystopian view. But watch this, but they are functional. They are depressed, but functional, right? They are hopeless, but functional. They are restless, extremely irritable, but they're functional, which means, what do you mean functional? They still can, maintain a relationship. They still can go to work. They still can, do the things that they normally do. And yet their inward mental state is being hit on and being laden by so many problematic things. And if, we don't pay attention and offer them the care that is needed and connect them with the right resources, we will allow them to go through life functionally until the point to where they become what? Dysfunctional, right? And so we've got a great state in our community that's in this mixed mania place, right? And we've got to be very careful at how we handle them, right? And making sure, even ourselves, if you're experiencing any of those things, what I'm telling you today is don't make that your normal, right? And I know you can function in a state and think and call and label it your normal, but I don't want you to do that. Why? Because you're actually accepting a way and a place and an existence that should not be yours, right? That we are given, yes, to live in states of peace. That's important. Now, why do you say peace? Glad that you asked me. Well, because one of the things that we must need do is establish a sense of what belongs to me, what should be the state and the status of my mind. In other words, how did God create me, right? And what is my responsibility in maintaining maintaining the state that God put me in. Now, here's the deal, that he speaks to us and says, you are to be at peace. Every place he starts talking about the mind, that if you keep your mind stayed on me, I'll keep you in perfect peace. Peace, my peace I give unto you, not as the world give peace, right? And the peace of God shall guard your heart and mind. So the Bible, the scriptures, are replete with peaceful text that says that is the state. Now, what is peace? Peace does not mean that your life will not have issues or trouble, right? Does not mean that you won't go through conundrum and or chaos. Doesn't mean that you won't have problems, right? That's not what peace is. Peace is the ability to maintain a sober state on the inside, to still maintain, I'm going through this, but I am still attached to reality. I still have my faith. I still have a sense of understanding who I am and what the world is around me. And on the inside, I have what the Jews call shalom. that there is nothing broken and nothing missing, right? That my mind is stable. It's still strong. Yes, I am processing grief. Yes, I am going through this divorce. Yes, I'm dealing with this problematic situation, in my life. Yes, I'm feeling pressure on my job, but inwardly, I am still at peace. I have accepted that as a part of the course of my life right now. It won't be like this always. I'm just going through a motion until I get to another a prosperous shore, right? That's what peace is. Peace is the ability for you to look at your world and still see, you know what, I'm going to be okay. I know this is happening. I know I got this bill, these bills. I've got this place to go. I got this assignment. And still on the inside, I maintain a level of understanding that, yes, I'm going to live through it all. God's going to see me through it all. I'm going to make wise decisions to maintain my peace. In other words, I'm going to do everything that I need to do to make sure that I don't disconnect and better yet, or connect to a dissolving reality or dysfunctional reality, right? So yes, I am, you are, we are supposed to have and maintain peace, right? So the whole objective is of how do I maintain that state, right? And that means now I've got to pay attention to the things, to the storm that cause me to be off of my square, be off of my peace square, be off of my tranquility square. I've got to make a decision to pull back, right? Right now, Culture Call, let me tell you the truth. Some have too many things on their plate. You got too much you trying to do, and it's affecting your ability to maintain peace and not enter into these psychological areas of defeat and depression and anxiety, right? That you're not, you got to begin to understand you have a responsibility. I have a responsibility not to allow our minds to get into a manic state. That's right. If peace is what is supposed to be, peace is what is given to me, then what is my responsibility, right? I cannot allow certain things to push me into this level, right? And again, I told you that most of the world live in a mixed kind of mania, right? And that's something to pay attention to. Even in your company, in your cohorts, in your friendships, your relationships, pay attention to people who are always bringing doubt, bringing discouragement, that nothing ever goes on, right? That might be where they are, but you got to make sure that you padlock yourself and say, yeah, but I can't receive that right now. I'm not in a place where I can help you. I'm XYZ ABC, right? You got to do what you can do to make sure, I'm trying to help people. If I can help somebody as I travel along, then my living will not be in vain. Please, trust me, I know the song, but herein lies the reality. You got to admit the kind of mental state that you exist in. Because if you are not stable, if you are not healthy, if you are not sane and sober, how in the world can you help somebody else? That's a good question. You can't help anybody else when you're frazzled at the end, right? You can't help anybody else when you're shaky. You can't help anybody get to their peace and get to their mental stability when you don't have peace and your mind is doubled and you can't find peace for yourself. Again, those are things that we have to pay attention to. And, again, outside of genetics and biological things that happen, extreme traumas, right, that have taken root in our everyday lives, we have to make sure outside of those things that may require medical assistance, yes, that may require therapy. Yes, outside of those things, we need to figure out what can we do and what decisions must we need make to stay in a place of stability, right? That's powerful. That's that's something that is so very valuable, especially when the person who you're in a relationship with, you're next to the cubicle to someone that's lives in mixed mania, right? And then that this other greater severe degree, right, is in mania, a psychotic mania. Now here is where it starts getting dangerous. This is very serious because it leads to psychosis, right? A sickness of the psyche, a sickness of the mind, right? Where they have a break from reality. These are the kinds of people that disassociate so much from reality that they'll murder, they'll steal, they'll take drugs, they'll commit suicide, all of those kinds of things. And when they break from reality, then none of us are safe. Right, when we are around people that are dealing with what they call psychotic mania, no one is safe, right? Because that person could enter into delusions, hallucination, disorganized thoughts and speech, and paranoia, right? Those are the kinds of people that walk into a place and shoot up everybody, and then when it's over, they have no clue about what happened. They can't tell you what happened. They're disassociating from reality. Those are the kind of people that do things, and cut themselves and they got blood all on them, and you're looking at them like, what is going on? And they have absolutely no clue about what has happened, how it is happening, and how to stop themselves from doing to you or themselves again. And so we've got to make sure that, and this is the place where most of us, especially if you're spiritual, this is the place where we talk about, evil spirits, demonic, satanic spirits, and things of that nature, that they've entered into a place where they are delusional, that they are hallucinating. They see things that are not there, right? They have this disorganized thought and speech. You talk to them and you're like, what are you talking about? Yeah. You're like, what in the world is going on with you? Where did you get that from, right? They're talking about, just various kinds of things, right? And you're like, what in the world? And I get it. And so you got to pay attention to that, right? They're overly paranoid that, you're trying to leave the house and they're threatening you. You can't leave the house. They're locking all the doors. They're taking out guns and knives trying to threaten you so you won't leave. That is a sign of psychotic mania. And we need to take it seriously. That person, no, you cannot put that aside, Culture Call. Don't do that. That sometimes our community, we suffer because we think we're specialists in areas that we are greatly ignorant in. And that word ignorant is not to demean or to insult. Ignorant just means that we simply don't know. But we don't like to say we know. We don't know, right? And so we kind of fake like we got knowledge in areas that we don't know. There are people around us that need immediate medical attention. There are people around us that often, need hospitalization, right? There are people that need a tremendous spiritual help. They need all of those things happening simultaneously, yes, so that they can begin to come out of that psychotic state. And if we don't do what we need to do, or we push it off, or we act like we're the doctors and that we went to school for MDs and all kind of specializations, we can literally expose our lives and our worlds to people who have lost and disconnected from theirs so much and put ourselves in danger, and they'll kidnap you, they'll do all kinds of things to you, and you're sitting there like, why you're doing this? And they're like, they're in a whole different kind of an alternate reality. That's where they're living. And so we have to take this seriously, because there are a lot of people that, again, when we see these things, a lot of times they don't want to get any help. I'm fine. Well, then you got to make sure that, you protect yourself. You got to make sure that you do what you have to do to maintain, because at any moment, a person that is experiencing psychotic mania can snap, and your life could be the result or be the end result of them snapping, and it ends up hurting you in an ultimate way, right? it could end up in you being hospitalized or better yet funeralized. And so we really need to pay attention to that and not miss the various levels of mania that exist around us. Listen, I know this is a heavy conversation, but we've got to have it. Yeah, it's Mental Health Awareness Month right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith, Praise 93.3. Listen, we're almost at the second hour. I need you to keep it right here. There's more powerful information to come. Don't miss it.
This is a world premiere.
And we are back right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith. Listen, it's the top of the hour. That's right. It's our second hour, 11 a.m. and some change, right? Yes, and we've been having a great day. Want to welcome you if you're just coming on to listen to the show. I want to thank you so very much for being a part of the CC family. That's right. That's right. Maybe I need to make that into my new jingle, a CC family, something like that, right? But it's a little too close to the Addams family. But nonetheless, we're having an amazing day, and I am praying that you are blessed and having a great day listening to this conversation. A lot of you are at work and you can't call in. I get it. You tell me that all the time. I just want to call in sometimes. But you can definitely, if you can't call in, you can hit me up on the app. That's right. Hit me up on the app and let me know how you are enjoying the show. Let me know if I'm missing anything. And if my research is flawed, let me know. I don't mind. I just want to do a great job and be better for all of us so that as we go on, we can grow together. Listen, I am grateful for you being on with us on this 11 o'clock hour. Listen, I want to send a special invitation to everybody. Who did I say? That's right. Everybody. On May 18th at 10 a.m. at the Impact Nation Fellowship Church, we're doing what we call in our church Family Wealth Series. And that is that every other month we're going to be talking about a particular level of wealth that families need to have, not just financial. But there's 5 levels of wealth that we've identified at the beginning of the year that we want to help our church family make sure that they have are working on to leave as an inheritance and start breaking some of these cycles and things that go on in our bloodline, because, the text says a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. So that's very important. But on the 18th, we're going to be having a symposium about mental health wealth, right? And we're going to be talking about mental health. We're going to be talking about creating safe space for families to talk about mental health issues. We're going to be talking about how to get over family traumas and all those different kinds of things. And we're bringing in a specialist to help us, Christine Bells. That's right. And I have seen her matriculate from college all the way up to all of her degrees and certifications. And so she is a specialized therapist and counselor that's going to help us on May 18th at 10 a.m. at the Impact Nation Fellowship Church. You and your family need to come. I am sending you a cordial invitation to be a part of that symposium. You don't want to miss it. Now listen, it's free, but you do have to register. Let me say it again. It's free, but you do have to register. And to register, you can go to www.theimpactnation.org. right? /events. That's www.theimpactnation.org/events. And you can register there. Tell us how many are going to come with you so that we can be prepared with the materials and all of the other accoutrements that we will be giving on that day. But I want to see you there. Culture Call. I want to sow a tremendous seed of investment into the mental health of your family, right? That when we begin to cultivate proper mental health statuses in our family, that is an inheritance. That is something that you pass along. When our children can grow up in healthy mental spaces, right? When they can grow up, that's how then they'll reproduce that and give that to their children, right? That when children come into dysfunctional areas or areas of families with a lot of trauma, a bad conflict resolution skills and things of that nature, and then we look at them in their generation like, why did they do that? If you really talk to them, you will find out that they have inherited that, right? And I know we can make our own decisions, but their decisions have been trained by people who were rearing them that were dysfunctional when they were children. And so in order for us to deal with these cycles and what some in the church world call curses and all those different kinds of things, if we're really going to deal with them, then we got to deal with them from a root cause situation, right? We've got to really be honest about what exists, right? We got to be honest about the things that occurred and not be ashamed of them, right? That you didn't have any, because your grandfather, grandmother, or your mom and dad were mentally dysfunctional or were operating in a perhaps mixed and even psychotic mania that, and it affected you in a particular way. You got to come out of the guilt and the shame and the darkness of all of that. Culture Call. Don't stay there. Don't stay there and live under the shroud of, there's nothing wrong and all. No. That became your inheritance. Those habits and behaviors became a part of who you are. And if you don't seek to address them, if you don't seek to confront them, because whatever you can't face, you can't fix. So we're going to be helping you face it on that day and giving you tools on how to fix it so that you and your family can begin to set out a new set out a new paradigm of how family ought to be for the Jones, the Wilsons, the Smiths, the Broughtons, the Williams, the Johnsons. That we can help each other together collectively as a community, fix those things and repair those things. But you can't do that if you don't face those things. And so there is going to be help May 18th at the Impact Nation Fellowship Church. That's right. We're going to have Family Wealth Symposium, Mental Health Wealth with Christine Bills. And you need to be there because I'm telling you, it's going to be a tremendous, tremendous blessing to your life. Now, here's the deal. What I want to talk about in this segment is really how these things can, what can trigger certain things, or what are these things, this mania. What does it look like? How does it even start? Because I hear some of you asking me, Bishop, how does this start? I see this in my family. I'm embarrassed to admit it. And I want to first tell you again, stop being embarrassed. I'm on this air to do my best to help all of my community. That's you, and most certainly you sitting in the back, right? I want to make sure that I do everything that I can do. And if I don't have the answer, I'll bring somebody on, to help, right? I got a friend of mine from Washington, D.C. that's going to come on next week. I think it's the schedule. He's going to come on in a show and help me with men and mental health, because men go through certain challenges that no one else does. And then I have another friend, a woman, that she's going to help us with female mental health, women's mental health. All those things are very, very important. And since I've never been a woman in my life, right, the best I can do is to bring somebody who's been a woman. I don't want to hear a man talk about a woman's mental health. That's just a part of me. Now, I get it. But I think that if there are qualified women, we ought to bring them on and bring them to the forefront to speak specifically to what happens in a woman when she's having mental challenges and hormonal challenges, et cetera, right? That we ought not ignore her agency to do such. So listen, I am super excited to have that conversation. But how do these things happen? What are the triggers? And so, in my research, again, it says here are some of the things that you can look for. Bipolar disorder, right? And that means that the brain, polar means your brain has poles, right? Like North Pole, South Pole. Your brains have poles, and there's a disorder or some kind of dysfunction in how they operate, right? It's the hallmark of mania is the hallmark of bipolar disorder, bipolar 1 disorder. And this mental health condition, individuals experience episodes that can range from extreme highs to extreme lows, right? Extreme highs being mania and extreme lows being tremendous grave depression, right? And so those things can bring on that. So bipolar 1 disorder can really trigger that mania, that manic state in the life of an individual, right? And then you also have medications and drugs can also induce mania, right? So one of the things that when I grew up, my grandmother, would always tell us, whenever you go to the doctor and they prescribe something, before you put that in your body, go research it first. Research it first. Find out what the side effects are. Find out what it has the propensity to do over taking it a long period of time, right? Don't just pop the pill, because a lot of these things are made of chemicals and that have certain reactions in various bodies. If you listen to the commercials, especially when they're dealing with manic drugs that address mania and manic situations, if you listen to them before they go off and they say it real fast, all of these side effects, that I'm taking something that's going to help me with depression, but it may have a side effects of having suicidal thoughts. You see what I'm saying? And so some of these medication and drugs induce or set the platform for having manic behavior. And so before you ingest any of those things, medication and drugs, before you take them, I'm not saying not to take them, but I'm saying before you take them, make sure you do your due diligence to yourself and to your family to research those drugs, right? Certain drugs, certain medications, particularly antidepressants, can trigger mania in susceptible individuals, especially if they have been misdiagnosed with unipolar depression instead of bipolar depression, right? Or if they take illicit drugs, right? Those drugs like hallucinogens and those things that cause you to have a dissociative state with reality, right? That's the caution that many people have, with cocaine and amphetamines and the drug of ecstasy. People are trying to find a high, especially those who are trying to have, out of this world sexual things. Don't cut your pearls. Let's just talk what's talk. They're trying to have a different altered state, but they'll take these drugs, not understanding, yes, they may have heightened sexual sensitivity, and in those areas, they might make them more sensual, hyperly sensual in those areas, but it's the coming out of those. You don't know how those drugs are going to affect you when you, as they say, come down out of it, right? It could leave a space in your mind open, and those things could also induce mania, right? And so you got to be careful. You got to be careful. I'm not here to be the principal and or the police to anybody. I'm not trying to parent you. I'm just trying to provide you with the right information that if you are doing cocaine, crack, and amphetamines and taking ecstasy and a whole list of other drugs, then you might need to curtail that. You might need to stop it. You might need to figure out what you're doing to your body, because you are opening up yourself to manic behavior. Oh, now, Bishop, you ain't got to worry about this because this is a religious praise station. Oh, no, I know what I'm talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about, because everybody ain't getting through with prayer and praise and worship. Everybody ain't getting through life on the Bible. That there are some people that go to church, but they are still dealing with certain levels of addictions and taking drugs, etc. Right? I'm not telling you what I think. I'm telling you what I know. And so I have to take responsibility and do my due diligence. And even if it ain't you, hey, eat the meat and throw out the bones, right? The hit dog will holler. So if you're not the dog that got hit, ain't no need to holler. There's somebody on here that needs to know that taking those drugs are not healthy for you. Period, right? And then we have neurological conditions. Brain injuries or neurological diseases can result also in behaviors of mania or manic behavior, right? Disorders such as multiple sclerosis, strokes, and traumatic brain injuries have been associated with causing symptoms of mania. So you got to be very careful when you're dealing with neurological diseases, right? And we see a lot of that when we're dealing with older people going through, they're diagnosing as dementia or Alzheimer's disease, senility, all of those things, or if someone, had just a rash of traumatic things to happen to them, we have to pay attention to it, right? And I think we're beginning to see a level of a better care for those who are in those states, right? Those who have found themselves, especially senior care. We're finding, we're gaining more information. Therefore, we're gaining more traction on getting them the medical or therapeutic assistance that they need to be able to handle these manic episodes that they have. And I get it. It is hard and very difficult to watch, especially if they're have parental proximity, grandparent, parent, to hard to see them go through this. I understand with no help, but there is research, and now they're coming out with various medications. What you don't want to do, again, is, self-diagnose and self-label and then self-medicate certain things, right? Taking roots and berries. No, you don't have that kind of specialization. I don't care if they did that in the past. No, get you some 2024 help, right? Get you some modern help and begin to have conversations of how you can help that individual that might be going through a neurological condition. And then, of course, there are genetic factors that usher in manic behavior. And, there is a strong genetic component to bipolar disorder, meaning that individuals with family histories of those who may have bipolar disorder within the family, they are at higher risk for developing mania, right? That your mother, your aunt, your uncle, your father, your grandparents, when they're in close proximity biologically and they've suffered from bipolar disorder or some kind of other psychological illness, then the bloodline is more susceptible to having mania or to having the same kinds of results in their own lives, right? And I think that's very important and we should pay attention to, right? That we ought not push that off and act like, oh, well, no, listen, I want you to take it seriously. Let me say this again. I want you to take it seriously and then help each other find the assistance that is needed so that we can make sure that we are healthy. I want to make sure that we are healthy. And then another one that the research says that goes on is what they call hormonal imbalances. Hormonal imbalances, right? And you find this a lot more in women. You find this whole thing, especially when they go through menopause or premenopausal stages or even postmenopausal stages. You got to be mindful of this hormonal imbalance or disorder can impact your mood regulation, right? Hyperthyroidism, right? An overactive thyroid gland, for those of you who want to know what that is, can cause symptoms that are similar to mania, right? And so it's not just the hot flashes. It's not just, irritability. It's not just that, but you got to be careful, especially women who I'm talking to now. You got to be careful to be mindful that a certain level of mania, manic behavior does not become attributable to what's going on in your life as you go through those changes, those hormonal changes, right? That those hormonal changes can lead and or be connected to psychological issues, and we got to pay attention to that, right? And and when somebody says, "Hey, you're acting this way," don't be like, "I'm just not." No, don't shrug it off, and don't just make that a part of life, because a lot of it is not a part of life, especially if you can make a decision to manage it. Let me say that again. That don't allow people at your family or your job, your spouse, to have to deal with behavior simply because these are things that are going on that are natural to you. You can't control it, right? You can't control these certain hormonal imbalances because if you would, I don't know anyone that would choose to go through that. Your body does what your body does, and those chemicals and those hormones are being released. But if they tell you that, then you need to pay attention to that and let them call you back to a certain sense of reality, call you back to a certain sense of sobriety, right? Don't get angry and snapping and irritable and be like, just leave me alone. I'm just, don't do that, because they're trying to understand and trying to help you. And I know you a lot of times don't understand that, but I want to make sure. That's why I said I've never been a woman. That's why I'm bringing on one of my dear sisters to come and talk about it. This whole idea of this hormonal imbalance, and to give some kind of, not credence, but to give some kind of conversation and language to sometimes that escape those who are dealing with and are suffering under this whole idea of hormonal imbalance that will lead to, or better yet, trigger manic behavior, right? And then another one that is important is sleep deprivation. And sleep deprivation is a warfare tactic that when there were POWs or prisoners of war, and the enemy was holding them, hostage, whatever that might be, they didn't allow them to go to sleep. And that lack of sleep can trigger manic behavior, especially can trigger bipolar disorder. They begin to disassociate with reality because you need sleep. Okay, let me talk to you grinders. You Holy Ghost grinders, you got to always, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Don't worry about it. You are expediting that process, right? Right. I'll sleep when I'm dead, Reverend. Okay, I get it. But hear me. Sleep deprivation opens the door for manic behavior, right? For all kinds of things to be attributed, and then irritability, bad decision making, depression, discouragement, thoughts that are not clear, right? Imaginations when you are sleep deprived, right? And so those things are very important. A lot of you who are experiencing psychotic disconnection, the first thing you need to do is go to sleep. That when you're dealing with a situation in grief, people say, that's the first thing they tell you, just take a rest. And I know it's hard to settle your mind. See, there it is. It's hard to settle your mind down because you're thinking about the loss. You're thinking about grieving. You're thinking about all of these things that got to be done. I get that. But one of the first things that they tell you to do is find a place to rest, find a place to go to sleep as best you can, because what? You're going to need that energy as you try to satisfy the processes of, welcoming in others, dealing with the grief, dealing with the mortuary, dealing with the services. That's a heavy lift, right? That's a heavy lift. And I know, when my mother passed, one of the things that my wife was saying, babe, just go lay down. And she would make sure that I would go to sleep. And that was a lot of people around me was like, hey, you need to go to sleep, because I was in charge of the program, contacting everybody. I had to preach the eulogy and all that. And that was a heavy lift for me as her son, right? We've talked about that in the past. And so that's something that, sleep is your friend. He give his beloved, the Bible, sweet sleep. Right. And I'm not talking about that eternal sleep. No, not the long sleep, not the deep sleep. I'm talking about that sleep where you can become restorative. Your mind can become balanced, and all of those different kinds of things, that your hormones and all those things that have been triggered by that traumatic event can begin to balance themselves out, so that you can be as lucid and as clear and as functional as you can be as you walk through that valley season. Right. So you got to get your sleep. You got to get your sleep. Those of you who are night workers, right? Your body was not designed to take long sleeps during the day, right? There's those certain chemicals that are not released in the daytime that are released at the nighttime. It's, it's part of that circadian cycle that, that God has wired our bodies. Jesus said, I must work the work of him that has sent me while it is day, because when night comes, no man should work, right? So this whole thing about factory work or whatever you got to do at night that you don't get proper sleep, you got to pay attention to that. And whenever you have a chance to get some level of sleep, especially in the nighttime hours, do that. Right? Another one is psychological stressors, significant life changes, high stress levels, and traumatic events, as we've already said, can trigger a manic episode in some people. Right? A lot of us handle life differently. A lot of us handle the triggers of trauma differently. And we need to have sober conversations around that reality, right? Some people handle situations and yes, they're affected, but they maintain a peaceful state, right? Their body maintains a level of homeostasis, right? And that's very important. And then there are some people that something happens and it triggers, and I don't mean to say this in a humorous way, but it triggers a clown effect. It triggers a manic effect. I mean, they go off the deep end. I mean, for real. And We can say at some instances that they're doing things for attention. I get it. I understand that. But we also still need to monitor those. We need to monitor those things so that, because you can tell when somebody's getting attention, and you can tell when someone is having a disassociative situation from a reality, right? Where this is so traumatic that it sends them into another level of trauma and shock, right? And that begins to produce manic behavior. So, yeah. Things of that nature, you got to really, really be paying attention to that, especially those who have lost someone during the pandemic, that those residuals can last for years if we are not careful and not paying attention, right? And so another one that can trigger manic behavior, mania, is substance withdrawal. Right now, that means when you're trying to break the addiction to drugs, alcohol, sedatives, it can provoke a mania or even hypomania. It can provoke those things, that mania, because that's why they say they have drug treatment rehabs. They don't just let you go, cold turkey by yourself, because when an addiction has you, it has already created an imbalanced chemical state. It has already created a space in your mind, right? When you're trying to reverse a deleterious choice and or decision that you have made, a destructive decision, then you got to pay attention to what happens in life. You got to pay attention to what really goes on. And if you don't do that, then you'll open yourself up to mania, manic behavior. It's so very, very important that you pay attention to that. And then they said that there's something that's called seasonal affective disorder. Now, this is interesting, right? Because it says that people begin to have manic associations or disassociating from reality with the change of seasons or the patterns of the weather, right? And you normally see that's during spring or summer, right? When they're coming out of the winter and they're coming into the summer or the spring months, something happens mentally in them, right? That they're good when it's fall and the winter, but as soon as the weather patterns change, and scientists are still studying that, right? What are these psychiatrists are still studying this phenomenon, that when those seasons change, they just, something comes over them, and you got to watch them. You got to watch them because they get all of this going on, right? And so, that's seasonal affective disorder. And then finally, infections and immunological disorders. There have been instances where certain infections and your immune system dysregulation have been linked to psychotic symptoms such as mania. So, when there's an infection in the body, depending on where it is, when there's something going on with your immune system, there it is. When there is something going on with your immune system, and when there is disorders in that area, it can trigger psychiatric symptoms expressing itself through mania. And so these are the things, that can trigger mania, right? Bipolar disorder, medication and drugs. 3, neurological conditions. 4, genetic behaviors. 5, hormonal imbalance. 6, sleep deprivation. 7, psychological stressors, right? 8, substance withdrawal. 9, seasonal affective disorder. And then 10, infections and immunological disorders. All of those can trigger manic episodes, and we must educate ourselves on that, and really pay attention to those when we see those things in ourselves, and when we see those things in others, right? That even in relational situations, divorces, a death of a spouse, when you sexual indiscretions, right? Those things, I know people say, well, I don't believe in soul ties. I don't believe in that. Okay, I'm just saying. I mean, I know you might not believe it, but I've seen it. You can keep the argument when I've seen the evidence, right? That you can get so interwoven, that you're sitting outside, you're slitting people's tires. Your folks will sit outside your job and wait for you with a gun in their hand or to stab you. when there has been, a sexual relationship and they've lost balance with reality, right? They become possessive, overly possessive, and all kinds of things. Yeah, it creates the fertile atmosphere for manic behavior. And we've got to pay attention to all of that, Culture Call. All of those things I just said affect our community. And we really need to pay attention so that we can provide assistance and help those who are walking through the valley of mania and manic behavior. Yeah. Hit me up. You know what to do. Hit me up on the app on 205-752-4800. Let's talk. If you need to talk, hit me up on the app and let's have a conversation. Let me know how this is moving you, how it's blessing you today, right? This is the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith, right here on Praise 93.3, your inspiration station. There's a little bit more to come. I need you to keep it right here. Don't miss it.
This is a world premiere.
And we are back right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith, Praise 93.3 FM, your inspiration station. And we got a little bit more to go today. I'm talking about a little bit more to go. And I want to talk about, listen, now, how can we help ourselves and how can we help each other deal with mania? It's serious, y'all. And we need a community to be able to do that. How can we encourage each other to deal with those kinds of situations and those things that come into our lives? And I think it's very important for us to pay notice to that, to make sure that if we're suffering and we're struggling, that we help each other find the assistance that we need to come through that season, right? And so I want to take this moment as we're about to, in this season, in this message, or in this show, not message, Lord, right? I want you to understand what it means for us to be able to provide assistance from a community. And, I want to hear from you. I want to hear from what you're thinking. I've got some ideas of how that works, but I want to know how you feel about helping each other through mania and disease, those mental health challenges and mental health diseases that it's going to take all of us, not just one of us, to deal with, right? And so I believe I got a caller on the line. I got my friend, Miss Joyce.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I got a good comment I want to share with everyone this morning.
Yes, ma'am.
I had been taking, this happened to me back in the 70s.
Uh-huh.
And I was taking the birth control pill.
Uh-huh.
And I was going to this, I can't think, family planning.
Uh-huh, yes.
But anyway, it's the place and people go there and they have abortions and all kinds of stuff.
Right, family planning, that's what it is.
Yeah. I was going there. And they put me on the birth control pill.
Uh-huh.
And I took them for 7 years. And they really affected me. And they did something to my mind and my body.
Uh-huh.
And I had to go to a psychiatrist.
Wow.
And I went to him for about a year.
Uh-huh.
And he would put me to sleep. What you call it? Under hypnosis.
Hypnosis, uh-huh.
And he would hypnotize me.
Okay.
And he would ask me questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would wake me up and he would play it back on the tape.
Right.
The question that he asked me and the things I said. And you would be surprised what your conscience would say when it's under hypnosis.
Right.
And a person, a psychiatrist doing it. And that really helped me.
Wow.
That really helped me because I was dealing with a lot of stress, strain, pressure, tension in my life because I was living at home with my mother, my father, and my brother.
So a whole lot going on.
My brother was an alcoholic.
Right.
And I had to deal with that, me and my children.
Wow.
And he told me.
The psychiatrist?
What you say?
Who told you? The psychiatrist told you?
The psychiatrist, I was telling him what I was going through living with my mother and my father and my brother being an alcoholic.
Right.
And he told me the best thing for me to do is to get me and my children out
of that place. Wow.
And find us somewhere to stay.
Wow.
And I obeyed.
That's
good. I moved out and I got somewhere to stay. And that really helped me and I got help and I got better.
Thank you, Miss Joyce, for being so transparent and open, because I know somebody just got helped right there. You have a blessed day, sweetheart. Listen, you hear what Miss Joyce just said, that environments can bring you into those manic behaviors. And I'm telling you, this is something that we in the Black community, we need to take seriously. We don't need to play with this. We don't need to play with this. That we need to help people if they need professional help. That means if you notice something or they notice something, direct them to somebody. I've said this all day today. Stop trying to play doctor. You don't know what's going on. Go ahead and tell and lead them and help them find a therapist so they can, diagnose their condition properly and get them on a development plan, a treatment plan, right? Get them to a place to where they can get some help, right? And then it's culture call. We've got to educate ourselves. Let's stop calling people crazy. Let's stop labeling people and stop calling them, all kind of foolish. I get it. I understand. That's the easy way out. No, educate yourself so that we know how to provide the proper level of support for those who are going through or having issues with mania, right? We are a community. We are a family. And don't make light of people who are having those mental challenges. Your thing is, hey, do you need help? Are you okay? Don't play with people like that. Make sure that we educate ourselves properly. And again, that's why I'm bringing somebody in to educate the families in my church that, hey, this ain't just your crazy Uncle Lubert or whatever, your crazy Aunt Mary. That's not what that is. There was something going on, right? And if you don't understand it on that level, it could slide right on. So a trigger could happen. A trauma could cause something to be opened up or cause you to open up to that same kind of behavior. So you got to be careful, right? Be patient and non-judgmental. And that's what I'm talking about, right? That mania can cause individuals to exhibit impulsive behavior, rapid speech, and heightened emotions, right? It's important for us to remain patient, to be understanding and non-judgmental. I'm talking to you judgmental folks sitting in the back, right? Avoid criticizing and dismissing their experiences, but provide them a safe space to talk about what is really going on, because a lot of times they don't want to go through it, but it's embarrassing for a lot of them. You got to do that. You got to do that. And you got to also insist that they stay with the treatment, right? Right? That, yes, come to church. Let's pray. Let's praise. Let's worship. But your therapist says you also need to stay with the treatment until we can come to some resolution, until you learn how to maintain a state of evenness for your own life. Yes, absolutely. You've got to do those things. And if you don't, what happens is simply this, is that you will begin to be an aid and abet that manic behavior, because you're not providing a safe space. You're not encouraging them to stick with the treatment, right? You're not encouraging them to choose healthy routines, right? Or you're not helping them to stay calm. You're adding to the pressure. And so those are some of the things that we can do as the community. Do not ignore it. Don't say, well, that ain't my family. That ain't my friend. That ain't this one. This ain't. No. All of us have an opportunity. And I know there are certain people that get upset when you mention help, but they need help anyway. And you and I are responsible to each other to help each other through to survive these, again, mental health challenges and definitely manic behavior. Listen, got to go one more time. That's right. This is the Culture Call with L. Spencer Smith right here on Praise 93.3 FM, your inspiration station. I need you to keep it right here. Keep it locked. We've got a little bit more to come. Don't you dare miss it.
This is a world premiere.
Listen, we have had an amazing day today, haven't we? Absolutely. Talking about mania and how we need to take our minds seriously. And I am really, really, really serious about this matter, Culture Call, because every day I see people exposing their minds to various levels of dysfunction, things that, and it could be something as simple as gossip, as rumor, as lies, as, you got to be careful, because one of the things that your most prized commodity that you have, that God gave you and me, is the ability to make sound decisions from a sound mind. Sound decisions, sound choices from a sound mind. And so if you really understand that, then if I am your enemy, then that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to attack the soundness of your mind. That's what I want to do. I want to make sure that you're not using your mind properly and how it is supposed to be functional in the world today, right? That you won't be able to make clear decisions, that you'll choose wrong or you'll decide wrong, right? That you'll open up and leave your gates wide open. And I know, I get it. Some of us are uberly nosy, right? But you got to think about it. You got to think about this, that you're not given to be a trash receptacle, that you've got to pay attention to what you allow to become in your thought life. Because if you do not, one conversation can trigger something. One experience, one trauma, one episode in life can open you up. And if you are not already working on how to keep your mind at peace, how to be clear, right? That even though, I watched my mother passed away, and I talk about this a lot because that's been, the most recent, what you would consider traumatic thing. I still had a peace. I had a peace in my heart. I had a peace in my mind. Did I shed tears? Yes. Did my mind start replaying, all of the things that were going on? And absolutely. I did. Absolutely. But there was an inward peace that God held me. God held my mind. God held my brothers. God held my family. God held us as we walked through that various situations. And I know that sounds really deep and spiritual. That's how I kind of want it to sound, because the mind is not just something that you can, deal with books, book knowledge and book science. No, you've got to have something, as the text says, that surpasseth all understanding, that will guard your heart and mind. That kind of peace, when I can't find it in a book, when I've never experienced it before, when people cannot articulate, how I should be going through a certain issue. I get it. You got to make sure that you keep your mind and guard it with diligence. That means that's an everyday thing. That means that I've got to feed my mind and be so healthy when I'm up, because when I'm asleep, I don't even know what's going on. And so when you put that in, you put those conscious thoughts in your mind and you deal with what you need to deal with, especially if you're going through something that is health or physical, psychological challenges. Once you've done all of that, you got to do what you can do so that you make sure that you can maintain a sound mind. Because if we're not careful, mania is sitting right in the audience. Mania is right where it is. And if we're not careful, guess what? We'll find ourselves dealing with mental issues that were not there, or we find ourselves triggering something that was lying underneath the surface. And that's not what I want to happen to us, Culture Call. So we've got to be sober, got to be vigilant, and we got to protect our greatest asset, our mind. Listen, at the end of every phone call, my mother and my grandmother would say, yes, I love you a bushel, I love you a peck, and I love you a hug around the neck. This is the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith, right here on Praise 93.3 FM, your inspiration station. Until tomorrow, another show as we celebrate Mental Health Awareness Month. Be good, be kind to all, embrace those, pray, that's right, and be the best person that you can be. Listen, I love you all. Y'all have a great day. Peace.